Hello, welcome back to 5D Fungus. All right, we are talking about growing mushrooms and fungus and mycelium and all that good stuff. So today's episode, we're going to talk about making an agar formula, a formula for your Petri dishes or your test tubes. And so basically there's tons of different recipes that you can do. And really you can actually just buy a pre-made recipe that just comes ready for mushroom growth. That's basically a mix between malt and agar. Not a bad way to go. That's the way I went for many years when I was first starting, because there's just so many things to think about with fungus. I just wanted to simplify and just do a recipe that I knew worked. As my time went on, I had that just pure agar jar sitting around, and I'm like, okay, I'm dwindling down on my malt agar. So I came to a point where I had to make my own. And you know what? It's actually super easy and it's worked really well. It takes a titch longer because I got to make it myself rather than just mixing the powder into the water in the lab. But whatever, it's kind of cool. You're probably like, well, why are you in a banana patch talking about Petri dishes? Because the recipe I've come up with is using bananas, right? So you can see there's some green bananas up there. I always tend to have some sort of green bananas available to me. And so it's worked really well. Basically what your mixture involves is some sort of sugar, starch, and agar. The agar is, it's actually a seaweed. It's what gelatinizes the medium. So you're probably like, well, dude, I don't have green bananas. Well, I actually modified this recipe from a potato recipe. So you could just use potatoes at the same ratio I'm going to use green bananas. So yeah, I'm going to cut these down now. Cool gang, back in the kitchen. I've got my green bananas, homegrown, pretty cool. And so yeah, again, I modified this off of a recipe I actually got out of the Mushroom Growers Handbook 2, which is specifically about shiitake cultivation. I'm gonna make 750 milliliters of solution today. Make sure you have your beaker. You always feel cool and scientific if you have a beaker. I'm not actually using the actual green banana. I'm just gonna boil the green banana to get the starch off of it. So first we're gonna cube this thing up. So like I said, I'm gonna make 750 milliliters. The recipe is for 500 milliliters, so you just gotta do the math. And they call for 500 milliliters for 100 grams of potatoes. And put that in my butt. It's always awesome using a beaker because you just feel so cool. And then here we go. Put the bananas in there. So we're just gonna boil that for at least a half an hour to pull the starch out. Okay gang, so it's been boiling way longer than a half an hour. My family's gotten home from the market, so my baby's sleeping, so I'm gonna do this a little more quiet. And I boil it longer than a half an hour. If you're just going for the starch, just about a half hour, dude, you get the starch out. I boil it a little longer because I'm gonna eat the bananas and I want them nice and soft, slightly translucent, similar to potatoes. So I actually did add a little more water while we were boiling it just because a lot boiled off. We're about to see if we hit at about 750 milliliters. If we need a little more, we can pour in a little more. Cool, so there I got my delicious bananas to eat later. I'm just gonna measure this out, so let's see. Bang! Look at that. Dead on. 750. Awesome. So now we're going to add the other two ingredients. Like I said, it's a super simple formula. White sugar and agar. I get my agar from Paul Stamets at Fungi Perfecti. I love the man, so I like to support him, but there's plenty of places to get agar. You could use all sorts of different kinds of sugars. Going back to Paul Stamets, he actually doesn't recommend using white sugar because it's such a simple sugar. He likes to use more complex sugars like a malt, just because it makes it harder for the mycelium to break down and challenges them a little more. It is a good idea. White sugar is so easy that that's what I'm going to use, and I just am they're not spending a lot of time on the agar, so I find it not that big of a deal. When I put them on the grain block, then they're challenged to break down that sugar a little more. The recipe I'm following is for 500 milliliters, so it's calling for 10 grams. Since I'm doing 750, we would go 15 grams of each, both the agar and the white sugar. Again, all the agar is it's a way to gelatinize the substrate. So here we go. We're going to use our scale again and measure this out. There we go. We got our 15 grams of agar. Just add my white sugar right on top. And obviously I got to do a little math. And I'm looking for 30 grams total. Cool. I have found that a blender works awesome at this point. It's nice to do it while this liquid's still hot, to blend it really nice. I've tried blending it just by hand. It doesn't work. Back when I did used to just use the pre-bought, it would look exactly like this. It would just say malt agar. It would be pre-mixed. I got away with stirring it and just doing it all in the lab again. It was a lot easier and faster, but it would have been better in a blender as well if you're going to do that. We're going to put this liquid into our blender. Put the powdered material. You can even just get a little more off the surface there. So there we go. Is it okay if I use a blender real quick? Or should I take it outside?
I'll watch and tell you.
All right, so we're gonna do our best to blend here. It just needs to be stirred, so we're not gonna blend long, especially since my baby boy is sleeping. You know, if my baby boy wasn't sleeping, I'd probably go a little longer, but this is fine. You're just trying to mix up the substrate. Bang, look at that. Cool. And that's our solution. So it's warm. It's nice to use it while it's warm because otherwise it'll kind of re-gelatinize and might get hard on you before you put it in the pressure cooker, which it'll still work, but you might as well just go into the lab, make it before. If you want to make the starch beforehand and you're going to go in the lab next day, or you're going to inoculate the next day, I've done that before and just add the agar, but as soon as you add the agar, you got a chance on the whole thing coagulating up. A few notes on the beaker. The reason why you want to use a beaker is because it's got this tapered edge, and so you don't get a lot of spill out. I have done this in like a big canning jar. It works fine, but when I was doing that, it only worked fine if I used a tiny little bit of liquid, all right? Because otherwise it's going to boil over and you're just going to waste a whole bunch. If you put this on super hard in your pressure cooker, this is going to build pressure and then boom, pop the top inside your pressure cooker and it's going to explode. So when you put it in, and we'll talk about this in the next video too, just set it right on there, all right? And then it just can boil up in there. If it's not set, it'll just kind of purge off the pressure and it'll be all right. Cool? So you definitely want a beaker. And like I said, beakers make you feel cool. The more beakers, the better. And yeah, there we go. So I'm going to go take my shower, put on my lab clothes, and then go into the lab, put this in the pressure cooker, and pressure cooker. So if you want to see the next steps, watch our next videos on how to sterilize this, pour it, cool it, and then inoculate it.